This is Annette DeLu with Infinite Soul Love. I wanted to jump on to give you another channeled message. I want to thank all of you for all of your beautiful, lovely comments on the previous video and all of your sharing and keeping your heart open. That is really what is necessary right now in helping all of us lightworkers kind of come to the forefront with what we're working on and what paths we're taking and how we're healing and all of that. Like, as we come together, it helps the collective, right? So thank you for that. This channeled message is sort of building upon some of the shadow work that I've been doing. And in the previous video, I had mentioned that I was working on the self-love issue, body image issues, things like that. And I'm still working on them. It's only been a few days, so I'm still processing and working through it myself. Obviously, this is something that has been a lifelong journey for me. This is not something that I'm going to just peel away everything in one fell swoop. So meaning that I have been working on this for my entire life, and I've reached a point of observation. I've reached a point of being able to see the things that I wasn't able to see before. Knowing what to do with those things. That's the challenge, right? Because once we see that we have some excess wounding that is, let's say, from a long, long time ago that doesn't serve us anymore, to be able to release it can happen in an instant or it can happen over time, right? So that's what's going on there. This particular channel was in response to, again, yet another dream, but not just a dream. It was actually multiple dreams. And it's been happening for, I don't know, better part of a year, I think. And it's been super, super weird because I, for the longest time, couldn't figure out why I was having this dream. Now, it wasn't a reoccurring dream. It was just having this person show up in my dream every so often. And I was like, why is this dude here? And let me give you some context. So when I was in grade school, I had the biggest crush on this boy. I think this crush started when I was in second grade. It was, super, innocent and very sweet. But I remember having this crush. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this sort of story that we're going to be talking about here kind of goes back even further, because I had a crush on another little boy in kindergarten who I used to go over there and play Star Wars figures with him every day after school. And he broke a necklace that I had, and I got really angry with him, and I basically just kind of shut him out of my life. And so that just came to my consciousness just now, and it's really funny to me because what we're talking about here is, that unrequited love or that perception of unrequited love, right? So I had this crush on this boy in grade school, and I wanted nothing more than to be his girlfriend and all this stuff. Like, he was, the cutest boy ever and all of these things, right? So I haven't thought about this guy in years, decades probably. These dreams I keep on having are of him. And he's not doing anything in particular. He's just sort of showing up as like a cameo in my dreams. And I'm like, what is this dude doing here? And keep in mind, this is like the grade school version of him because I haven't seen him since grade school, right? So I'm kind of like, okay, why is this coming up? And for the longest time, I haven't been able to figure out why he was showing up, okay? I am now starting to realize why. And it has nothing to do with him specifically. It has to do with me and my growth and sort of where I started the cycle of looking for love in places where those people could not give it to me. Okay. And this was due to the wounding that I had with my father. And I'll get into that a little bit sort of after the channel because there's some pertinent information in there. What is important is to know that when you are in that wounding, and that wounding gets created when you're very, very young, it sticks with you and you keep on replaying that cycle over and over and over again. And in my particular case, not only have I been reliving that cycle, but then I've also been reliving a cycle that has been part of my past lives. And this is how it pertains to my twin flame as well, because I had been living through these energies of my twin flame rejecting me in lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Well, there were also lifetimes where I rejected him. So it's kind of just depends on where you are in the spectrum of your journey. When I found out that, okay, so I've been sort of in this cycle for a while. I've done a lot of work on this. I've been doing work on this for the last 10 years. Even, before I met my twin, I had been working on this type of healing. Now, I wasn't doing it in energy work, but I was doing it in therapy. I was doing it in other modalities and things like that. I've pretty much healed this cycle within me, which is, having this desire or need to get validation from somebody else that I am lovable. Okay. So that part of me has been healed. What I didn't realize was still sort of hanging out in my energetic field was this sort of echo of this belief system that stretched all the way back to my childhood that I just needed to take a look at in order for that energy to be released. And that's simply all that needs to be done sometimes, is just to look at the energy to then oh, right, I remember that energy. Yeah, that's not relevant to me anymore. Why is this hanging out in my energetic field? Okay, cool, you can go. That in and of itself is sort of like oh, thank you for being here. I know you were here to protect me for, however many years you were here, but, I don't need that protection anymore. I don't, it's not necessary, right? So I'm going to get into the channel, and then afterwards, as usual, I'll sort of talk a little bit about the channel itself. You are wondering if you have the capacity to love, not in the sense of what true love is, but rather the opinions and actions that appear to be love. Love simply is. You don't have to worry about your capacity to love. Your fear in love is whether or not you will be able to express it in a way that can be received. Take an example in your life that has recently happened. You wanted to continue giving to a good friend of yours. You wanted to give your love to her continually, and that friend rejected that love. You knew not to take it personally. That is exactly how you must go about your life with love. You give your love, or rather, you channel that divine love through you. If the person cannot or will not receive it, you can do nothing about that. So when someone can't receive that love, do you keep loving harder, trying to get them to accept? No. That would simply deplete your energy. You must turn your attention towards the avenues or channels where the flow of love is clear and abundant. You must not be discouraged by the blocked reception of love, for it is not your battle. It simply has to do with the other person and their inability to accept or believe they deserve love. So then my next question was about the unrequited love. Is that still a place in which the block is on the other person if the person is not reciprocating that love? Unrequited love is a bit different, as the person may have the ability to receive love, but they are not able to receive your frequency of love. It's all about the frequency or energetic resonance. You constantly trigger each other in new states of consciousness, like playing a game of pinball. That is, until you decide to stop getting knocked around so you can follow your true path, which the universe is kindly saying to you, no, not that way. You may look at this as the universe leaving you high and dry or abandoning you. This is simply the process in which you have a ton of baggage you need to release. And each rejection or experience gives you the opportunity to either let go of some of that baggage or to take on more. We understand it is a tangent from your original question, but we want to make it clear. If you had let go of the baggage, you would not be in the situation of unrequited love. You would be attracting the experiences to you that are aligned with love. Therefore, being able to accept the exchange of love. This goes for all kinds of relationships, friendships, family. How many people say that they hate their parents? Unrequited love. Then you might say, but they didn't love me. Again, unrequited love. Do you know that for sure if your parents don't love you? Annette, you have had direct experience with this in your life. You thought your father didn't love you enough to spend time with you or to be interested in your life as an adult. You finally let go of the story and the baggage that you held on to for decades, and you were able to see the truth. He gave you the truth from his own mouth, that he loved you, but didn't know exactly what love was or how to express it. He wasn't shown love by his parents. And this is what he expressed to you, thereby shattering that belief system that he didn't love you. So you see, it's all about perception. You have the perception that someone doesn't love you, then that is the reality that you create. To be honest and vulnerable is the only way to move through this life. Most people feel like they could die of emotion if they truly, truly let out their vulnerability. You are all here as light workers to change this. So if you love somebody who doesn't love you, are you sure that's true? Get confirmation. If it is true that they cannot share your love, then you can walk away knowing that you were true to your own feelings. Leave the doors open. Don't close doors or burn bridges. You do this because you do not trust yourself and your own boundaries. If you are in a healed space, you would be able to send that love from your heart space and move forward without resistance, without anger and pain, because you don't take the lack of reciprocation as a rejection, you take it as guidance. Okay, so let's unpack that channel a little bit. What they were talking about, my guides, was basically about the pattern that I have with choosing people that reflect back at me this sort of unrequited love. The sort of instant reaction that most of us have in unrequited love is to basically just run in the other direction. Oh, he doesn't love me, she doesn't love me, I'm going to run. And that is sort of the antithesis of what we need to do. First, it's about getting to that real raw truth. Do we know for certain that this person is not reciprocating our feelings? There were so many times in my lifetime where I was afraid to share that with somebody. And so I just waited and waited and waited for them to come to me or for them to share their feelings or be vulnerable with me. And so I would almost suffer in silence. And there were times in high school where I found out after the fact that this person really liked me or this person wanted to date me, but was too afraid to say anything. And I was feeling the same way about that person, right? There are several lessons in this channel, and that first lesson is don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions about how somebody feels about you based on your own perception. And sort of that's a step one is figuring that out. Once we figure that out, if we are in a place that we know that this person is not able to reciprocate our feelings, there are two things that are important here. The first thing is this is a snapshot in time. This is just in this moment. This person isn't reciprocating those feelings. Now, that might be for the rest of your life. That might be for 5 minutes. It might be for a week or 4 weeks or who knows. It could also be that this other person is not in a place to share your vulnerability, in which case that is still a little nudge from the universe saying, you know what? Hey, that's not the right direction for you. I've spent so many years over the course of my lifetime trying to understand why I've had so many of these situations in my life where I've been interested in somebody or where I have loved somebody and I have the perception that they do not love me back. When I look at some of these instances, and this has not been my whole relationship life. Of course, I've had relationships that I have had reciprocal love and things like that. But this is sort of addressing those periods of time in my life where I had a crush on somebody and they didn't know I liked them or they didn't know I was interested in them. And that's, that was a very much a high school thing or a grade school thing, a little bit of college here and there. But it's about trying to identify what it was that I was really looking for in those one-sided relationships, which is exactly what that was. And a lot of you out there who are on a twin flame journey might say, oh, well, it's just the repeating pattern of that. And in a way it is, and in a way it was for me, because essentially what my twin was showing me was this pattern that I needed to work on, which was, hey, you keep on turning your attention towards the direction of somebody who is A, unavailable emotionally, or B, cannot reciprocate your feelings. And that is something that I needed to sort of course correct that within myself. So that's a beautiful part about the twin flame journey, is that our twin is always going to mirror that back at us. And that was simply the healing that I needed to do. That had been reflected back at me from childhood all the way through high school and through college to some extent. And, I started having healthy relationships right around college. And not every relationship I had was healthy. I had a couple of pretty challenging relationships. We'll just put it that way. I'll talk about that another time. I started breaking myself out of this pattern of only being attracted to people because they were not available. So the next part of this is actually in friendships, like friendships and family. I know that I have had a lot of friendships fall away over the course of my spiritual awakening. It's just sort of what happens, and it's meant to happen. It's something that I've not had too bad of a time dealing with, quite frankly, because it's like you kind of know when you see the friendships that are going to thrive and that are going to move and grow with you, and then you see the friendships that are going to fall away as you sort of move forward on this journey. And it's not because you're better than them or they're better than you or anything else. It's just a change in frequency and a change in energy. And you no longer resonate with each other, right? So when that happens, the friendship just sort of falls away, or in some cases explodes spectacularly, which that's happened to me as well. But either way, it's just one of those situations that needs to happen in order to clear the way for new energy. So if you are in a friendship right now that is not working, and you really love the person and you're really trying to make it work, and you seem to be doing all of the work and all of the effort, then maybe take a few steps back. Not permanently, but maybe just take a few steps back and sort of retract your energy a little bit to see how you feel. Because that's essentially what you want to do, is you want to sort of see how you feel when you're not in that push energy, or you're not in that, oh my gosh, I have to give this person more love because they're not receiving my love. It's kind of what the channel was saying, like you're not going to keep on exuding that love and giving more and more and more of yourself when that person isn't receiving it, right? It's like throwing your love down a black hole and expecting it to come back to you. And that's the other part of it, is that when we give love, we don't expect it to come back to us. We just give love because we do. And if it comes back to us, amazing. And if it doesn't, that's cool. We're going to turn our attention towards the place where that love is in the same frequency that we are. So lastly, regarding this little second grade crush that I had, I want to sort of give you a little bit of a tool that I use oftentimes. And this is one of my favorite tools to use with my clients as well. And that is to basically imagine that little version of myself, that little second grade version of myself. And imagine that she's in a beautiful bubble of divine light protection. And I'm going to sit in that bubble with her, and I'm just going to have a little conversation. And I'm going to talk to her about how she's feeling, what she needs, what she wants, and really listen to her. And if it's something that I can give her, then I'm going to give it to her. And then I can allow that timeline to collapse. That timeline of her always needing somebody to reflect back at her the love that she's wanting to give. And allowing her to know that that love can be reciprocated and she can face herself in the direction of that love. I want to make it clear that just because you might be in your twin flame connection at this moment and it seems as if it is unrequited love, or that your twin cannot receive the love that you want to give, I want to make it very, very clear that this is a snapshot in time. This is B, not forever, right? There is a reason why you are twin flames, and there is a reason why you are on this path and this journey together. Now, everybody's journey is different, and everybody's trajectory is different. Are you meant to be together in this lifetime? I don't know. That's something that you can take a look at in the Akashic Records. Sometimes they will tell you, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they don't want you to know because you're not supposed to know. There are times when we are on this journey where we have to trust, and we have to be able to be vulnerable in this connection. Because if you're not, then ultimately you end up with two people who are not sharing in their vulnerability. Now, the one thing I've struggled with personally is that I have expressed my feelings for my twin many, many times, and he has not reciprocated in speaking those feelings to me, but he has shown me those feelings at various different times throughout our journey. And for me, at the time, I don't know that I could receive that because he was sort of showing me in a way that I didn't understand. It's almost like communicating in a different language, right? And that's where the love languages, I've talked about this before, love languages come in super handy. And I didn't find out about those until much, much later. When it comes down to it, if you have not been vulnerable with your twin, how can you expect your twin to be vulnerable with you? Now, the thing that I struggle with personally is, I was vulnerable with him a million times and he rejected me a million times, so I'm not going to be vulnerable with him anymore. Yeah, that's my struggle at the moment. So I'm basically saying, okay, so I don't feel like I have it's not necessarily the right. It's more like I feel like it's not my place anymore at this point to express how I feel, because after somebody sort of rejects you many, many times, you have a tendency to say, okay, cool, I'm not going to put myself through that rejection again. So you end up in a space of allowing, which is where I have been, which is allowing whatever is meant to come into my experience, it's going to come. And whether that's in the form of my twin, or if it's in the form of a soulmate, or whoever it's in the form of, I'm open to that, right? When it comes down to being vulnerable, there's vulnerability and allowing the person to know how you feel. And then there's vulnerability, and I don't know how even to describe this, but it's like puking of emotions, right? It's like vulnerability and puking of emotions. And that's kind of what I did to him many times, which is instead of being just vulnerable and expressing to him how I felt, trying to push that and tell him, how I felt and express how I felt all the time, because that's something that I do. I do have a tendency to over communicate sometimes. So when it comes down to it, looking back on some of the experiences that we had together, had I just expressed it to him and let it be, and then accepted whatever was going to come, it would have most likely been a little bit easier of a journey. But then when I think about it from another perspective, I don't think either one of us needed an easy journey. I think I needed the swift kick in the pants in order to do the work that I needed to do, and perhaps he did as well. It's all in beautiful, perfect, universal timing, and things happen the way that they need to. So I'm hoping that this journey of doing my own work can help some of you out there as well to do the same work, because it is really important. And this is something I do coach my clients on. It's something I help my clients with in the Akashic Records. But the one thing I wanted to do, especially with this, I guess it's going to be a series. I don't know if it's going to be a series. We'll see how many videos I end up doing with this. But I not only wanted to keep myself accountable, because since I've been working with clients for so long and coaching and doing Akashic Record readings, I sometimes neglect my own shadow work and my own work that I need to do. I actually did have a friend of mine, my friend Angie, who, if you listen to my podcast, The Heart of You, she has been on my podcast a couple of times. You can go to The Heart of You on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The links are down below. She had called me and we were chatting about some stuff, and she basically kind of tapped me on the shoulder energetically and was like, hey, your guides are trying to get your attention. And I was like, oh, and I instantly got this visual of myself sleeping 5 feet before a marathon finish line. And they were like, that's you. You're sleeping. You're not doing your work. You got to wake up and finish. It surprised me a little bit because I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm always doing my work. I wasn't actually actively diving deep into this stuff like I am now. And this sort of unraveled that thread that needed to be unraveled, so I can now finish the rest of this set of work that I need to do, whatever this set is. Because I really feel like there's always something that we can work on. There's always some place that we can look into to polish up or to look at from a different perspective. And it just so happens that right now I am looking at a lot of the same things that I have worked on over the years, but just from a different perspective. If you are interested in getting a session with me, you can feel free to head to my website. It's infinitesoulLove.com. Thank you so much for listening, and have a beautiful, beautiful week.